Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me and hear me. Welcome. My name is Peter Leary. I am the Deputy Director for Organising at the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, and I'm going to chair this evening's webinar. So thank you all for being here for this, I think, very important but also very timely trade union webinar. It is timely insofar as it comes a week before we join our Palestinian partners to commemorate the anniversary of the start of the Nakba, the ongoing catastrophe inflicted on the Palestinian people by the State of Israel, and the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians and the destruction of over 500 cities, towns and villages from 1947 to 1948. Every year in May, we mark the Nakba anniversary, not simply as an exercise in historical memory, not merely to make the record, but also to historicize and better understand the struggles of our present moment. This webinar is timely too, in that it comes in the week following May Day, International Workers' Day, when we celebrate the struggles of working people and the achievements of the trade union movement. A day founded on principles of rights, dignity, equality, and justice, but also, as the very name International Workers' Day suggests, a day rooted from its very inception in international solidarity, when we recall the famous principle that an injury to one is an injury to us all. This year, on May Day, Palestinian trade unions renewed their call for their counterparts around the world to escalate our efforts and end the shameful complicity of governments, and especially Western governments, including Britain, in Israel's illegal occupation, colonial apartheid, and genocide. In doing so, they highlighted the horrific fact that Palestinian workers have often borne the brunt of Israel's genocidal violence, in many cases deliberately targeted and killed for simply continuing to do their jobs as medical personnel, journalists, rescue workers, and humanitarian workers. And they reasserted in that call that the struggle for justice in Palestine is inseparable from the global struggle against systemic racism, exploitation, and oppression. Over the past 19 months, millions in this country, including many trade unionists, have stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people, in opposition to Israel's genocidal onslaught in Gaza, and in opposition to Israel's ongoing attacks against Palestinians throughout their historic homeland. Many have renewed their commitment to the Palestinian struggle. Many others have encountered it for the very first time. In towns and cities, in workplaces and communities throughout Britain, there is now a growing solidarity movement. But 19 months in, with Israel's genocide not merely continuing, but even intensifying, with not just bombs and bullets, but horrifically starvation being used as a weapon, it would be all too easy to become demoralized. We know that the opposite is needed. As our Palestinian trade union partners have consistently reminded us, we need to do more. And just as Palestinian workers are at the forefront of their people's struggle, so too trade unions in Britain have a central role to play in building the movement that we need in this country. And so the purpose of this evening's webinar is to think about how we as solidarity activists, but crucially as trade union members, respond to that call from the Palestinian trade union movement. As we mark the Nakba next week, including through the Workplace Day of Action next Thursday, the 15th of May, and mobilizing for the National March for Palestine in London on Saturday, the 17th of May, and also going forward for the remainder of 2025 and beyond. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers this evening, who I will introduce now all together and then in turn. Firstly, we have Martin Cavanagh, who is the National President of PCS, not to be confused with PSC, the Public and Commercial Services Union. Manal Hdaife, the Lebanese school principal, a member of the Executive Board of Education International, and a regional branch leader of the Public Primary Schools Teachers League in Lebanon. Then we have Sarah Wooley, who is the General Secretary of the Bakers, Food and Allied Workers Union. Dr. Samia Al-Botmeh, a Palestinian academic at the Economics Department at Birzeit University and a BDS activist. And finally, Louise Regan, who is the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and a member of the National Executive Committee of the National Education Union. So let me go directly to our first speaker, who is Martin Cavanagh, the National President of the PCS.
Good evening, everyone. And Peter, thanks very much for that timely reminder at the start of tonight's event about how important it is that we continue as trade unionists, as socialists, as activists, to continue to absolutely not only give solidarity to the people of Palestine, but continue to platform the horrors that they are being inflicted upon them every single day, and to remind ourselves about what more we need to do to bring these atrocities to an end. And I want to start off reflecting on the last time I attended on behalf of my union PCS, a webinar organised by Palestine Solidarity. It was just as the ceasefire deal was being announced, and I think there was a cautious welcome in many quarters after 18 months of onslaught of the people of Gaza, where the most incredible and horrendous scenes that being witnessed and unfolding before our very eyes. There was a hope that finally there would be a cessation of those atrocities and the genocide, and that we would now start to see a prolonged period of peace after that, all that period of immense suffering from the Palestinian people and those in Gaza. But sadly, of course, we are well aware now that that ceasefire has not only crumbled, but as Peter has quite rightly said, the escalation of the Israeli state's attack on Gaza and indeed on West Bank is intensifying. Israel have not only reneged on the terms of that deal, but it is quite clear now that they continue their vicious assaults on Gaza, killing thousands of innocent men, women, and children. And I don't think you can be human if you are not moved by the images in the last few weeks of emaciated children in particular, searching for food, searching for loved ones and families, disorientated because of the terrible, terrible pain that is being inflicted upon them. And now, of course, we know that Israel are intended to go even further. Their stated aim this week is that they want to capture Gaza, a land that has been illegally occupied by Israel for over half a century now. But as Peter said, this is not just about the bombs and the guns and the bullets being fired. This is an absolute attack on all fronts now. We have now over 2 months into a full and total blockade where all supplies, food, fuel, and medicines are being stopped from entering into Gaza. Aid, in its truest sense of the word, is being stopped from entering into the Gaza. And there can be no doubt and no equivocation, as far as we're concerned, that every single attack, whether it be physical or whether it be process-based, is an absolute war crime and is continuing to fuel the genocide that we've seen during this terrible period. They are war crimes that are carried out with the endorsements of both the US government and, disgracefully, the UK government. And we continue to see arms shipped to Israel, intensifying that attack on those Palestinian people. They continue to fail to put sanctions in place on Israel, despite the demands from millions around the world that has to be the next, not only logical course of action to see an end to this struggle, but the most humane and the only humane action that can possibly be accepted. But yet this week we've heard from our own UK government again that is now seeking to renegotiate a trade deal with Israel. So, comrades, while it is absolutely clear that it's not just Gaza, it's also West Bank, where we're now seeing mass kidnappings and ethnic cleansing continue with impunity, that we have to, as a movement, have to step up our activity. And while I am absolutely ashamed of the role that the UK British government has played in the atrocities taking place in Palestine. I am immensely proud of the work that my union, PCS, has done and the stance that we've taken from day one since October 2023, but also a long history of supporting the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and the people of Palestine. Because our union is very clear that we absolutely 100% support, and we will not stop until it is implemented a full boycott, divestment and sanctions against Israel. That is the only course of action that is acceptable. And just last week at the Scottish TUC, it was our General Secretary who moved a motion to Scottish Congress calling for a complete stop on arms sales to Israel, calling for and oppose immediate sanctions on Israel, for an officially recognise the state of Palestine, and to join South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice. We're proud as a union of the stance that we've taken, and last week in Dundee we were proud to move that motion that was overwhelmingly carried by the Scottish TUC Congress. And PCS will continue to support all demonstrations and actions called by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, including, as Peter said, the Workplace Day of Action on Thursday, the 15th of May. Every show of solidarity, as far as we're concerned, means two things. It absolutely is a demonstration against our own British government, a government that is complicit in the war crimes, complicit in the atrocities, and complicit in the genocide. And to tell them that they do not act in our name. They have never acted in our name, and they certainly do not do so now. And we will keep protesting until they stop their support for these war crimes. What I think, and we as a union think, something even more important is sent every time we demonstrate, whether it be on the streets, in our communities, or in our workplaces, or outside our workplaces. And that is that we send a message to the Palestinian people that they, despite the horrors that they are experiencing, are not alone. We will not be silenced. We will not walk on the other side of the road and turn a blind eye to what is going on. We will continue to shout from the rooftops on every platform possible that an immediate and permanent ceasefire, end to the arms sales to Israel, a complete sanctions regime on the Israeli government are the only acceptable courses of action. And we are with them in their struggle as they continue to fight literally for survival. They are not forgotten. So I will close with this, just a reminder that every time we demonstrate, every time we get involved in an action, no matter where that action is, yes, we send a message of condemnation to our own UK government, but we absolutely send a message to those, our brothers and sisters in Palestine, that we are with them, that we absolutely will continue to fight and get the message out until this terrible, terrible atrocity and genocide comes to a permanent end. Solidarity, comrades.
Thank you very much, Martin. That was a very motivational speech and contribution, and thank you to for the ongoing support of the PCS that you mentioned in terms of the continuing national demonstrations, but also the wider work that you described in terms of the wider trade union movement and your support for Palestine solidarity in that context. I think it was really important that you mentioned the need for sanctions, for an arms embargo, as I think you call it, the only humane, only acceptable course of action, but unfortunately one that the British government has so far chosen not to take. So thanks again for your contribution. Let me move on to our next speaker, who is Manal Hdaife, who is a Lebanese school principal, a member of the Executive Board of Education International, and a regional branch leader of the Public Primary Schools Teachers League in Lebanon. You're very welcome, Manal.
Thank you a lot. Yes, I'm Manal Hdaife. I'm a director and official school named Kamal Jumlat Official School in Lebanon. I have 1,000 students in my school. 500 of them are Lebanese students, and the other 500 are Syrian refugee students. Yes, and also I'm a member of PPSTLL, the Primary Teachers Union in Lebanon, and also the chair of the Arabic Countries Cross-Regional Committee in Education International, and lately also a member of the Executive Board of the Education International. I'm saying this not to introduce myself, but to give a message that we are working all of together to raise the voice of the teachers. They are suffering in most of the Arabic region, especially in Palestine and in Lebanon and in Syria and in Yemen and a lot of places. Unfortunately, we are talking about our situation that we are facing. Yeah, Palestine is facing a lot. The teachers there, Gaza is under attack. People there, they are starving. They are facing maybe the most, what can I say, bad things a human can face. And also in my country, Lebanon, maybe unfortunately we have the same destiny because we have the same enemy. Israel attacks Lebanon every day. They talk that they are bombing some places where they have enemies also, but it's not true at all. This is a lie, a big lie to all of the international society. But the good news for us that as I now introducing myself and talking about our situation, all of the international unions, as my colleague before me, they are every minute and every moment they are sending us the solidarity, and they are sending us the support that we need, that we can feel that we are not alone in this time, in this difficult time. So this is an important thing for us. It's an important support for us. Yes, thanks for NEU for everything they are doing to support our small unions and our small country defending for the human rights. That's why I'm talking always, how can we talk about the human rights, and how can we talk about democracy, and we are facing, and till now, till those days, we are facing such an incredible actions, because yes, I said it in the NEU conference, and I will repeat because it's not going out of my mind. Everyone maybe watch the video on the social media for the bombing of Gaza, and people are flying like a birds. But the video said they are not birds, they are humans. So how can you imagine this in your mind, seeing this scene for the children, for the students, for the teachers, and for the international society? A lot of things to talk about. I just want to be too brief, because if I want to say everything, I will say words and words and books and books. In my country, after the pandemic, we have the economic crisis. The teachers in my country, they are now having a salary per month for $200, because the inflation of and the declaration of the Lebanese currency. And then lately we faced the war from Israel also, pumping everywhere, destroying the schools, and most of the students in South Lebanon and in Beirut also, and teachers, they were displaced. Till now, they don't have home to go to, so they were displaced, and also a lot of schools turned to shelters. For me and the president of my union, we visited our colleagues in the schools where they were displaced in, and we asked the students, and we asked them a lot of questions. You imagine that 5 or 4 years old student, he said, I asked him, okay, what do you want to say to the world, because the world now is watching you? What is your message? He said to me, okay, I love my teachers, I love my school, and I miss my school. I want to go back to my school, and I want to go back to my home. They let the students or the children in this age, they have the dream not to become a doctor or to fulfill their dreams. It's only to return back to their home. So, yeah. Unfortunately, always I say that I want to talk about our success stories, not our suffering and our bad stories. But my final message to all of my colleagues all around the world, for the international unions, the international organizations, your support means a lot for us. Your solidarity is so important for us. Yes, hand by hand, shoulder by shoulder, we will fight together. We will have the ability to transform the future future for our students to transform education, because unfortunately, if governments invest in education as they invest in weapons and wars, we are now in a better place. But they are not doing that. We will survive. Yeah. And also, this is our country, this is our land. I'm not leaving my country anywhere, and I will fight to the last breath. I will stop here and thank you a lot.
Sorry, I've just been told I was muted. So I just what I had been saying was thank you very much.
I'm thinking that it's my internet issues. It's okay.
No, it isn't. I just got a message. So sorry for those watching, and sorry to you, Manal, as well. Thank you for your comments. They were very, very powerful words, and it was great to hear about the wider regional context, but also the emphasis, the very important message for trade unionists watching this tonight, for people in this country, the message that you gave about the importance of international solidarity and the need to go hand by hand, I think you said, and shoulder by shoulder, and in that way to transform the future. And I think that's a very important message for us tonight. So sorry for that slight technical hitch of me failing to unmute myself, but let us nevertheless move swiftly on. Our next speaker is Sarah Wooley. Sarah is the General Secretary of the Bakers, Food and Allied Workers Union. So very welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Peter, and thank you for the invitation to join tonight's platform. I'd like to express both mine and the Bakers, Food and Allied Workers Union's unwavering solidarity with workers everywhere, especially those in the food industry and allied trades. And we stand firm in solidarity with workers and their families in Palestine who continue to endure not only economic hardship, but a brutal and dehumanising occupation. We've just celebrated International Workers' Day, and that's a moment for us to reflect on the achievements and struggles of workers across the globe. But it's also a time to recommit ourselves to the values of dignity, to fairness and justice in the workplace and beyond. But this year, we cannot mark this day without naming the devastating context in which Palestinian workers and their families are living. And that's why tonight's meeting is so very important. The right to work with dignity, to earn a living wage, to be safe in your workplace and in your home. These rights are too often denied to Palestinian people. In Gaza, where the food industry and broader economy have been decimated by war and blockade, farmers, fishers, bakers, factory workers, many of whom form the backbone of a once thriving agricultural and food sector, now face unbearable conditions. Fields have been razed, markets destroyed, bakeries bombed, food production halted, and not by accident, but the systemic dismantling of the infrastructure needed for survival. And still they work. In rubble and under siege, they work. Palestinian workers display an extraordinary resilience that deserves not only our sympathy, but our active solidarity. That solidarity must mean calling for an end to the occupation and siege and for justice, dignity and freedom for Palestinian people. But it also means recognising that their struggle is linked to ours. Because the exploitation of labour, be it under capitalism, colonialism or militarised regimes, follows a familiar pattern. It is workers, especially in essential sectors like food, care and construction, who carry the heaviest burdens during time of crisis. It's workers, often low paid, precarious and disproportionately women or migrant labourers, who are expected to keep society functioning whilst their rights are trampled and their humanity are overlooked. The Palestinian labour force, like so many across the world, faces not just economic injustice, but structural violence. And the food industry in particular tells a story that is both global and deeply personal to us. Whether it's the olive farmer who can no longer tend her land because of illegal settlements, the fisherman whose boat is seized for crossing an invisible maritime line, or the market vendor trying to feed their family amid shortages and bombings, the fight to survive is also the fight to work. So as we honour those workers worldwide, let us lift our voices for those who are not only underpaid but under siege. We've got to remember that international solidarity is not just a slogan, it is a practice. It means raising our voices against oppression wherever it exists. It means demanding our governments hold those responsible for war crimes to account. It means listening to Palestinian unions and workers' organisations, supporting their call for boycotts, divestments and sanctions. And it means affirming again and again that Palestinian workers, their families and their communities are not forgotten. They are part of our movement, they are part of our struggle, and their liberation is bound up with our own. So as part of our International Workers' Day of Actions this year, as well as everything else that has been said, let us recommit ourselves to building a world where workers do not just survive, but they thrive. A world where the right to live in, the right to safety, to self-determination is not dependent on where you live or which flag flies above your head, because until all workers are free, until the Palestinians are free, none of us are truly free. Thank you, Peter, for the invitation to join you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was incredibly powerful and inspiring words. And I think, you know, some of the things you talked about in terms of when you were talking about the Palestinian bakeries and the workers in the various sectors in care and construction and other sectors, I think gives an example of the sort of natural links between trade unionists, between working people here and working people in Palestine. And I think, you know, your description of, you know, their liberation is bound up with our own, and the fact that you know, the exploitation by capitalism and colonialism follows a familiar pattern. So I think you know, we've got it shows the potential there to build real links, to demonstrate, as you said, that solidarity is a practice and not merely a slogan. So thanks very much for those comments, and thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Dr. Samia Al-Botmeh, who is a Palestinian academic at the Economics Department at Birzeit University and a BDS activist. So Samia, you're very welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting me. Palestinian workers have always been at the forefront of struggle for Palestine. As you may know, we do not have a welfare state system, so we do not have healthcare, universal healthcare system provided for us, nor a pension scheme, nor any of these services that usually governments provide. Who provides these services for the Palestinians who have been providing these services are the workers. So workers are not just a segment of society that actually provides for its members a living. It actually provides an entire segment of section of all life services to society. In addition to it actually bearing the aspects of the struggle, they've always been at the forefront of that. And we can see it clearly in the Gaza Strip, where workers, of course, are not working in their workplaces, but they are the ones who are providing care. They are the ones who are working through the rubble. They are the ones who are carrying the injured. So workers who usually have been providing care for society now are actually taking care as much as possible of their community in the time of genocide. And as a result, they've been one of the most affected sections of society as a result of the genocide in the Gaza Strip. So losing your means of work has meant that workers had to step into a different sphere of trying to help their communities and enable some sort of life for their community in the Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, the situation is very cumbersome and is very dire. Since the war on Gaza, unemployment rates increased threefold. This is the result of nearly 180,000 Palestinian workers who represent about 20% of the workforce losing their work in the Israeli labor market. Those support nearly 1 million people in the population. Workers within the West Bank, working within the economy of the West Bank, have also lost their jobs. They've lost their jobs as a result of Israel's ongoing colonial policies that have been run since 1948 but have been intensified since the war on Gaza started, including more than 1,000 barriers restricting movement across the West Bank, restrictions on imports and exports, restrictions on land, use of water, access to all sorts of resources. This had affected people's capacity to continue with their work, but it also has affected people's capacity to earn. Wages in the West Bank declined sharply. More than 20% of workplaces within the West Bank are actually working with partial pay. So they actually work full hours, but they get a third or a half of their pay. And usually this is done with the agreement between work owners and laborers, because otherwise there is no other source of income. So workers within the West Bank have had to endure either loss of employment or extremely low wages, even when they do full hours of work. Public sector workers, civil servants, have not received a full pay, 1 month full pay, since 2022. So the public sector is also affected even before the war on Gaza, but the impact of the war has been devastating even for these workers. Aid to the Palestinians have been cut. So in addition to all these harsh colonial measures, not having a means of help, practical means of help, has been devastating. In a way, these conditions, the conditions of a very harsh political reality, the ongoing genocide in the Gaza Strip that we watch every day on our TVs, the ethnic cleansing process within the West Bank, within particularly the region, the Jordan Valley region, as well as the periphery, the south periphery of Hebron, in addition to this destruction of refugee camps in the north of the West Bank. This actually is the Nakba in the making. The Nakba is not something that we commemorate. It's actually ongoing. Every day we are having to face ethnic cleansing policies, demolition of houses, demolition of businesses, movement barriers that suffocate and restrict and kill off every aspect of life within the West Bank. This is all, be it in the Gaza Strip, the horrific genocide in the Gaza Strip, the starvation of children, the helplessness of the population who are looking at each other, not being able to do anything to help their children, to save lives and so on. The fact that we see this live on TV makes the genocide, makes the process of starvation and ethnic cleansing even more horrific. And it actually puts more responsibility on our shoulders. Trade unions have always, particularly British trade unions, have always been at the forefront of progressive movements around the world. Have always stood in solidarity with movements fighting against racism, against colonialism, sexism, and so on and so forth. And trade unions, British trade unions, have always stood with the Palestinian cause. But your stance at the moment should be qualitatively different. Qualitatively different because the type of assault on the Palestinians is extremely horrific compared to Israel's long process of colonialism, oppression, violation of human rights. We can't even find adjectives to explain what Israel is doing. Now, your stance in terms of standing in solidarity with the Palestinian cause should rise to the occasion. Activating BDS campaigns in all areas, economic, cultural, academic, putting pressure on your government, especially in the area of arms and supplying Israel with arms, pushing for lobbying your members of parliament, working with other trade unions around the world to pressure Israel as a government, but Israel also, Israeli trade unions, the Histadrut, who are all part and parcel of the process of colonialism. You're activating your solidarity and not just passing motions and taking a stance on the Palestinian cause is what we are asking for, is what we expect from you, given your long history of solidarity with the Palestinians. Also fighting the oppression of those who stand, the British government's oppression directed towards those who stand with Palestine is also extremely important. I think the Palestinian cause represents at the moment our world consciousness, and by standing with Palestine, by fighting against Israel's colonialism, by taking a stance with decolonization, with liberation, is a responsibility of every conscientious and supportive of human rights around the world. So thank you for your solidarity. Please continue to actively engage in your actions of solidarity and further continue to heighten your pressure on your government in particular. It should not be acceptable to be party to genocide, and it should not be acceptable for the British government to continue to repeat history again and again. And thank you for your solidarity.
Thank you very much, Samia. And you're right, it should not be acceptable to be party to genocide. I think that was, I mean, again, very moving. Thank you for your account of the situation, both in Gaza and also across the West Bank as well, and the impact that Israel's violence, but also the daily restrictions place on Palestinian workers and on the Palestinian trade union movement. But I think most of all, and I think what's really important for this seminar this evening is the call to action. I think your words that at this moment are our response, notwithstanding the progressive history of the trade union movement in terms of standing against racism and alongside progressive struggle. At this moment, our response needs to be qualitatively different, I think is a very powerful message for people on this webinar to take away. The need to rise to the occasion you spoke about, and to build BDS campaigns across all sectors, and how the Palestinian cause represents our world conscience in this moment. I think all of that is very important messages for people to take away from this seminar this evening. So thank you very much for that. And I think it's a message that will lead us on to our final speaker this evening, who is Louise Regan. Louise, many of you will know, is the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and a member of the National Executive Committee of the National Education Union. So welcome, Louise, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Peter, and thank you to all of our speakers. It's always very powerful to hear from our colleagues in Palestine about the situation on the ground. It's always very shocking to hear what is happening. I know we all see it on our screens, but it is always very devastating to hear their words and to know how difficult the situation is for them at the moment. So I'm here speaking on behalf of the NEU this evening. So the NEU has a long and proud history of support for the Palestinian people, going back to the 1980s, actually. And we have regularly taken delegations to Palestine, obviously not since the war on Gaza started, but prior to that, we were taking 2 delegations a year to allow our members really to see the daily situation for the Palestinian people in the West, in the occupied West Bank. And I have to say, all of the members that I have visited with, you know, what they witnessed when we went and what they saw and heard from our Palestinian partners were things that all of them talked about as life-changing experiences, and all of them came back and were committed to fighting harder for justice for the Palestinian people, because I think we can all see what is happening on our screens and we can all read about the history of what has happened for the Palestinian people, but actually when you go and you meet people and you see what their daily lives are like, it is very hard to come back and not feel that you have to do something more within your trade union, but also more widely within your communities. My union is regularly criticised for our support of the Palestinian people. Recently, in a newspaper article, we were condemned as the union who had the most speakers at the national demos. Well, I have to say, I'm proud to say that we have been there consistently and regularly speaking out against what is happening, against the genocide that we are witnessing on our screens, and against the attacks on the Palestinian people, and no attempts to silence us will work. Our union will continue to speak out against that injustice. We know that tens of thousands of Palestinians have now been killed in Israel's war on Gaza, and that over 2/3 of those are women and children. Hundreds and thousands displaced. 10 children a day face an amputation with no anaesthetic, and over 3,000 children have now had at least one limb amputated. And we know across the occupied West Bank, attacks have increased significantly since October 2023. At least 950 Palestinians have been killed, including 181 children. We know that across the West Bank, many children have been unable to access education. We know that because we speak to our partners in the education system there, and we'll continue to work with them to support the work they are doing for justice and freedom and for their children's right to an education. 85% of schools in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. All 12 universities have been completely or partially destroyed. Over 17,000 children have been killed in Israel's war on Gaza. More than 625,000 students have had no access to education for nearly 2 school years now. Those children have witnessed horrific and terrifying events, and the trauma they have suffered will take years, if not decades, if they are ever able to overcome that. The total destruction of the healthcare system with horrific scenes covering our screens, all of those are things that many of us will find very hard to forget. And for over 67 days now, the borders into Gaza have been closed. No food, water, or medical supplies have entered. The World Food Programme announced that they have completely run out of food, and the few remaining small NGOs say they will run out in the next 2 weeks. Over the last couple of days, we have seen horrific images of children completely emaciated through lack of food. Collective punishment of people is a crime, yet that is what the Palestinians in Gaza face. For 18 months now, we have marched nationally calling for a permanent ceasefire and for our government to stop arming Israel. The NEU has been very proud to support those marches. 25 national demonstrations with thousands of people on the street, marching for peace, marching for justice. Throughout that time, we have been condemned and criticised by our political opponents who have tried to demonize us, but we know that we stand on the right side of history. Our demands in the union and across the movement have always been clear: a permanent ceasefire and an end to all arms sales to Israel. Since the beginning of the war on Gaza, there have been huge attempts to silence us, and we have seen that. But we will not be silenced. But now is the time across the movement for us to escalate our campaigning, to build the solidarity movement and support the boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign that has been spoken about tonight. It is essential that we continue to build that movement, to speak out more and to argue in our communities for boycott, divestment and sanctions. We also need to build the 17th of May Nakba rally to be the largest show of solidarity yet. It is important that we are not distracted from our work in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the struggle. As the bombs rain down on Gaza, our political leaders here in the UK remain silent and continue to arm Israel. We, the people, the trade union movement, and our communities would not be silenced. It's essential now that we keep speaking out, that we keep marching, that we keep boycotting until we finally get freedom and justice for the Palestinian people from the river to the sea. Solidarity, and we will continue to fight for justice.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you as ever for the ongoing, the fantastic work of the National Education Union, and for your solidarity, the delegations, the demonstrations that you talked about, and the many other ways in which that solidarity is expressed, and of course for standing up to those who seek to silence and to derail our solidarity movement. So thank you. Let me say a huge thank you to all of the speakers this evening. I should also say an important thank you to Marcial and Gabriel, who have, as many of you will know, have done a lot of the work behind the scenes to make this event happen and to make it a success. Let me just say a few words to finish by reiterating really the calls for action that we have heard. Firstly, if you've not already done so, when you leave here this evening, start making plans for what you can do next Thursday in your workplace. Every workplace is different, so discuss with your colleagues in your branch what kind of action is best suited to your circumstances. You could organise a lunchtime solidarity walkout or an educational meeting, circulate a petition, or publicise the national demonstration. No action is too small, but we know that we need to do more. As Samia said, our stance needs to be qualitatively different in this moment. On Saturday, the 17th of May, make sure you are in London. Assemble at 12 noon at Embankment Tube for the national demonstration. Bring your trade union branch or other trade union banner. Join the trade union block meeting by Cleopatra's Needle on Victoria Embankment. That march will be the culmination of a week of activities, a week of action starting on this coming Saturday, the 10th of May, with local protests in towns and cities. So check out the PSC website or your nearest PSC branch to find details. And the week of action will include a mass lobby of Parliament on Wednesday, the 14th of May, to take our demands for an arms embargo, for sanctions against Israel into the heart of Westminster and directly to MPs. So make sure you get involved in that, but also going forward, ensure that your branch or your region is affiliated to PSC and get involved in our ongoing campaigns. We need trade unions and trade union activists to do that. Recently, PSC launched a new campaign, Don't Buy Apartheid. We're calling on everyone to take 2 actions to boycott Israeli fresh produce and boycott Coca-Cola. And we really need trade unions to get behind that campaign, whether it's workers in the retail sector, campaigns for workplace outlets to drop these products, or simply spreading the message. Today, PSC has been protesting both outside and inside the annual general meeting of Barclays Bank. And last year, spearheaded by workers in the creative and cultural sector, we forced Barclays to cancel its sponsorship of summer festivals. And that kind of action is what we need in every sector. Across the country, we're campaigning to force local councils and universities to cut financial ties with companies that are enabling Israel's system of oppression. This is an absolute scandal that the pension pots, the deferred wages of millions of workers, millions of trade unionists and retired members are being used to finance Israel's war crimes. But we can stop it. So contact PSC and we can provide you with resources, model motions, and other support. So let's get organizing, get active, get planning, and get building. And I'll see you all in London on the 17th of May. Thank you very much.